Eileen Gu hits back at Vice President's comments on her national choice. Eileen Gu, a San Francisco-born skier competing for China, has fiercely responded to criticism from U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and others who questioned her decision not to represent the United States at the 2026 Winter Olympic Games in Milano Cortina. The comments have sparked broader debate about nationality, identity, and the role of politics in sports as Gu continues her historic Olympic run with 2 silver medals and another medal possible. What J.D. Vance said. During media appearances at the Games, J.D. Vance implied that American-born athletes who have benefited from our education system, freedoms and liberties, should consider competing for the United States rather than other countries. His remarks referenced Gu's choice. She was born and raised in California, trained extensively in the U.S., and attended Stanford University, yet opted to represent China, her mother's homeland, in international competition. While Vance stopped short of demanding any policy changes, he expressed that he would root for American athletes who identify as U.S. representatives. Gu's response to the criticism. Gu did not shy away from the question when asked by reporters about Vance's comments and the broader backlash. She greeted Vance's criticism with a light-hearted, "I'm flattered. Thanks, J.D. That's sweet," before articulating her perspective. Gu said she feels like a bit of a punching bag for what she described as politically motivated criticism tied to anti-China sentiment, not her personal choices. She pointed out that many athletes compete for nations other than where they were born and said the focus on her decision seems amplified because of her success and because China is often viewed negatively by some critics. Broader backlash and personal toll. Gu's comments have drawn reactions well beyond political circles. Critics on social media and media personalities have labeled her choice a betrayal or framed it as unpatriotic, while defenders argue that athletes should have the freedom to choose who they represent. The debate has even spilled over into personal security concerns. Gu has publicly described feeling targeted by some critics over her decision, including threats and confrontations, which she says are rooted in cultural and political tensions rather than sporting decisions. Amid the controversy, Gu has maintained her focus on competition and using her platform to inspire young athletes globally. Eileen Gu's response to J.D. Vance's remarks highlights the complex intersection between sports, nationality, and politics. While critics emphasize patriotism and birthplace, Gu argues that her decision reflects personal heritage and a genuine desire to inspire a wider audience, particularly in China, where skiing has fewer role models. As she competes at the highest level in freestyle skiing, Gu's reaction underscores the broader conversation about how athletes navigate identity and public expectation on the global stage. Eileen Gu hits back at Vice President's comments on her national choice. In the world of elite sport, gravity is predictable. Politics is not. When Olympic freestyle skiing champion Eileen Gu responded to comments from a U.S. vice president regarding her decision to represent China on the international stage, it wasn't just a celebrity headline, it became a cultural moment. A reminder that in today's globalized world, identity is rarely simple, and loyalty is often misunderstood. But if there's one thing Eileen Gu has mastered, it's balance. Not just on skis, but between worlds. A choice bigger than a flag. Eileen Gu's decision to compete for China sparked conversation long before any podium finish. Born and raised in the United States to a Chinese mother, she grew up navigating 2 languages, 2 cultures, and 2 narratives of belonging. When she chose to represent China in the Winter Olympics, critics framed it as a political statement. Supporters called it empowerment. Commentators debated loyalty. Social media erupted with opinions. Then came public remarks from a high-ranking U.S. political figure questioning her national choice. For many athletes, that kind of spotlight could be overwhelming. But Gu didn't retreat. She responded with clarity, poise, and conviction, qualities that have defined her career. Her message was not fiery. It was focused. And that made it powerful. Identity is not a competition. In a world that often demands singular allegiance, Gu represents something more modern, duality. Her response subtly reframed the debate. Identity, she suggested, is not a zero-sum game. Embracing one part of yourself does not require rejecting another. For first-generation and multicultural individuals around the world, this struck a deep chord. Millions grow up holding more than one passport in their hearts, even if only one in their hands. Gu's choice was personal, rooted in heritage, influenced by opportunity, guided by her own ambitions. It wasn't about turning her back on one country. It was about stepping forward toward another. And in doing so, she challenged the outdated notion that belonging must be exclusive. The pressure of representation. When athletes compete, they carry more than equipment. They carry symbolism. At the Olympics, Gu became one of the most recognizable faces of Team China, winning medals, making history, and captivating audiences with her charisma. At the same time, she remained deeply connected to her American upbringing. This dual visibility amplified every word she spoke. So when political commentary entered the conversation, her response had to do more than defend a decision. It had to protect a narrative that young people today are global citizens. Gu's strength lies in her refusal to shrink under scrutiny. Instead of engaging in hostility, she leaned into confidence. She emphasized unity over division, culture over conflict, personal growth over political noise. That restraint was strategic and elegant. The athlete, not the pawn. Too often, athletes become symbolic battlegrounds for political agendas. Their personal stories get reshaped into national talking points. But Eileen Gu resisted being reduced to a headline. Her response reminded the world that she is, first and foremost, an athlete. A young woman who trained relentlessly, studied rigorously, and earned her success through discipline, not diplomacy. Her decision was about opportunity, family roots, and long-term goals, not partisan alignment. By speaking calmly and directly, she reclaimed ownership of her narrative. In doing so, she demonstrated a form of leadership rarely taught, the power of measured words. A generation redefining borders. Gu belongs to a generation that grew up digitally connected. A generation that studies abroad, builds global businesses, and communicates across continents in seconds. For them, borders feel less rigid. Her response to criticism reflected this worldview. She didn't frame her choice as betrayal or rebellion. She framed it as expansion. Why must identity be limited by geography? Why must loyalty be interpreted as exclusivity? Her story challenges traditional thinking about nationality in an era of globalization. In that sense, her hit back wasn't combative, it was philosophical.